Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you overheads. Overheads is a very wide topic, and that is why I have divided into 6 videos, where video number 1 would be showing you introduction, that is what is overheads and why do we need to study overheads. Video 2 would be steps for absorption of overheads. Video 3 redistribution of overheads. Video 4 would be the methods for absorption. Video number 5 would be the machine hour rate, and video number 6 would be the treatment of over and under absorption of overheads. Now let us concentrate. You will find all the links in my comments. Now let us start focus on video number 1, that is introduction and why do we need overheads. What do we understand by overheads? Overheads is nothing but the indirect cost of any organization. So I would say overheads is the indirect cost. When I use the word cost, it consists of 3 things. First is the indirect material. Next is the indirect labor. And then we have indirect expenses. What do I mean by the indirect material? Let us say I am into manufacturing dusters. I have named my duster as SJ duster. This is what I am manufacturing. Now, what can I find in this? When I see this product, what can I find in this? I can see the plastic. I can see the foam, there will be glue, and there is some paint through which I have written SJ duster. All these items can be identified in the product. Any material which can be identified in the product is my direct material. Now, I am using nuts and bolts in my machinery. I am using lubricating oil for its repair. All these things can I identify in a product? No, I cannot see how much oil is put in this, how much nuts and bolts put in this. All these which cannot be identified, any kind of material which cannot be identified with a product becomes my indirect material. Next is the indirect labor. Now, there are certain workers who are working for production of this. They are directly linked with the production of this. There are people at the machinery who are directly producing this product. Those are my direct labors. What about indirect labor then? The people sweeping the floor, the person at the office, all these people doing the admin work, all these are my indirect labor because they are not directly linked with the production. They are just helping for the production. That is my indirect labor. Next is the indirect expenses. Now I have a machine which is helping me to manufacture this. That machine is hired from outside. I am paying higher charges. Those higher charges has to be paid for the production. I cannot produce until and unless those higher charges are paid. So it is directly linked with the production. Those are my direct expenses. The electricity used in the office, the water charges, are these directly linked with the production? Can I produce without the office electricity? Yes, I can. Those are my indirect expenses. In short, indirect cost is something which is a helping hand to the production. They are not directly linked with the production. They are just the helping hand. All these collaborated together becomes overheads. Now, this is the classification on the basis of elements. There is one more important classification, that is classification on the basis of nature of overheads. On the basis of classification, I can divide overheads into 3 parts. The first part being factory overheads, second admin overheads, and third would be selling and distribution overheads. This would also include my marketing cost, marketing expenses. Now, what do I mean by factory overheads? Factory overheads is that indirect material plus indirect labor plus indirect expenses which is spent in the factory. For example, the nuts and bolts lubricating oil used for the machinery. Where is it? In the factory? Indirect material used in the factory becomes a factory overhead. The stationery used by the office department. Indirect material used in the office, it becomes an admin overhead. Stationery or the pamphlets or hoarding boards used by the sales department. Indirect material used by the selling department, it becomes a selling and distribution overhead. Similarly, labor. The security guard at the factory. Indirect labor at the factory becomes a factory overhead. Security guard in the office. Indirect labor in the office becomes a admin overhead. Salaries to the sales staff or the salesman. Indirect labor used by the sales department, it comes under your selling and distribution overhead. Similarly, come to the expenses. Let us say there is refreshment expenses, there is refreshment given to the workers. What is it? Again, indirect expenses for the workers, factory workers, factory overhead. Electricity charges used by in the office. Indirect expenses used by the office, admin overheads. Again, electricity used by the sales department, or you can say the electricity used by the sales department, water charges, all these indirect expenses used by the sales department becomes a selling and distribution overhead. Therefore, anything which is used by the factory which is indirect in nature becomes your factory overheads. Indirect in nature used by the office and the admin back-end support becomes the admin overheads. Any indirect cost used by the selling and distribution becomes the selling and distribution overheads. Now, this is what is overhead. We have covered this till now. Let us shift to the next one, that is, why do we need to study overheads? Before we start learning anything, we need to understand why we are actually learning that. Coming back to our dusters, that is the SJ dusters. Now I have decided to start a company and make dusters. Before I start producing, I have to decide on its selling price. Do you agree with me? I am starting the production. I will have some units ready. I will sell it into the market. Can I decide the selling price at the end of the year? No. When these dusters are going into the market, it has to go with some selling price. So before the starting of the year or before I start the production, I need to decide on my selling price. So let us now decide the selling price of SJ dusters. What all do I need to make the SJ dusters? I need certain direct material, that is the plastic, foam, glue, paint, all these things. These, let us say it is rupees 20 per unit. Next is direct labor cost, the people who are directly involved in the production. Let us say they charge rupees 5 per unit. Let us say there are certain higher charges, certain freight inward. All this comes up to rupees 2 per unit. Clear? These all three sum up to my prime cost. So prime cost per unit is rupees 27 per unit. Now these are directly linked with the product. I know how much material is consumed in one product. I know how much direct labor is consumed in one product. So these are my per unit, and it's very easy for me to find out the per unit cost. I know how much material is used. I know the cost of that material. I directly put the burden on the product. Now, all the direct expenses are covered. Coming to the indirect expenses, that is overheads. Overheads can be broken down into two parts. There is variable overhead and there is fixed overheads. Variable, again variable with respect to the output. So I decide, or I know that my variable cost is ₹2 per unit. That means I make 1 unit, I incur indirect expense of ₹2. If I make 2 units, it is ₹4. So I know that per unit I will have to bear ₹2 per unit. So where is the problem? The problem lies in the fixed overheads. The problem lies at this point. You will ask me, ma'am, what is the problem with fixed overheads? Let me explain it to you. Let us say this is the factory where I am manufacturing the dusters, and the rent of this factory is ₹10,000 per month. 10,000 per month. If I make 1 unit, I have to pay 10,000. If I make 500 units, I have to make 10,000. I have to pay 10,000. If I make 5 lakh units, I have to pay ₹10,000. That means it does not change with the change in output, and something which does not change with the change in output is my fixed cost. Also, this is my periodic cost. Why do I call it as periodic cost? Because it changes with the change in period, not with the change in output. Periodic cost, it is a per month cost. That is why it is a periodic cost. Now let us say I have decided that I am going to make 5,000 units in this month. Can I put the cost burden of 10,000 on each of those 5,000 units? How much will I collect? I will collect 5,000 into 10,000. Is that correct? You will say, no ma'am, you cannot do like that. What you need to do is, you need to evenly distribute this 10,000 on those 5,000 units which you are going to produce. I say, makes sense. So what I do is, this 10,000, I divide by 5,000 dusters which I am going to produce. So I get ₹2 per unit. That means the cost burden on each product which I need to put is ₹2 per unit. I put this here as ₹2 per unit. The total cost comes up to ₹31 per unit. Let us say I add a profit of ₹4. So I have fixed the selling price as ₹35 per unit. That means I am going to sell each duster for ₹35 per unit. How did I get this 35? Can I get this 35 without this 31? No. Can I get this 31 without this 2? No. For getting this 31, I need to know this figure, and for getting this ₹2, I need to convert the periodic cost into a product cost. What did I do? I converted a periodic cost, a per month cost, into a product cost, that is a per unit cost. If I don't convert this, I will not get something here. I will not be able to put the burden. I cannot keep this cost with me. If I keep this cost with me, I will get into a loss. What I need to do? I need to shift the burden of this cost to my ultimate product, that is the dusters. Now, I want to know, when did we fix this? At the beginning of the year or at the end of the year? At the beginning of the year. At the beginning of the year, you tell me, do I know this or do I know this exactly? No. I don't have actual figures. I will know my actual production, my actual cost at the end of the year. These both are my predetermined, my budgeted, my estimated cost. So I can say that I calculated rupees 2 as budgeted overheads divided by budgeted output. And what I get is rupees 2 per unit, which is known as absorption or the recovery rate. Why do I call it as absorption rate? Because 2 rupees I am absorbing from each unit of my duster. Out of rupees 35, rupees 2 is my absorption towards overheads from the product. That is why it is known as the absorption rate. When do we do this? At the beginning of the year, and therefore all the figures are budgeted. Both the figures are budgeted. This is the reason why we need to study the overheads chapter. Thank you very much. This is all for this video. Hey guys, if you like my video, please subscribe to my channel, and in case you want to get online classes, please log on to myguruavatar.com and search for the Guru Sweta Jain. I also have a free material on all the chapters. In case you want the free material, please email me to shweta0504@gmail.com with your phone number, and I will mail it to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much. See you in the next video.